Hi, today we're going to talk about shading. Now, right now, some of my students are working on their portrait project, and shading is a pretty important part of that. Learning how to really embrace the true lights and darks of an image is incredibly important to rendering something that looks realistic. After all, any kind of picture that we draw, any type of shading that we put on is going to start giving the viewer impressions of real life in 3D. And so as we work, it's important to have as much value as possible. Now, value is the name for how light or how dark something is. So using something like this ebony pencil, which is a pencil that gets darker than the darkest dark of a normal pencil. These are fantastic. I love them. And they're pretty easy to blend. Not quite as easy to blend as what's called a charcoal pencil. Charcoal pencils are even more so, but charcoal pencils can get a little bit messy, whereas this has super darks, but not all the mess, not as much flakes. Anyway, so I've got this. Now, first step of blending is just what nature gave us. We got the finger. You just go in, and if you just take your finger and go back and forth and start at the edge and then just work back and forth, you kind of pull some of that color off, and that really creates what's called a soft blend. Now, you can also do the same thing by just changing the pressure as you draw. Just very slowly changing the pressure and barely anything on the page. And I can go in and I can actually blend this back and forth where I'm just going and I'm equalizing the value because I'm pulling the dark to the light and pulling the light to the dark, and all of this is kind of equalizing. Or I can blend slowly going across or in just one direction. And that creates a different feeling where there's a little bit more light and dark mixing together. This one is just neutralizing it down to gray. That's very good if you want to go back with an eraser and kind of add some drawing on top of that. You could go back in and kind of draw a little circle or something. But again, playing with shading and doing this stuff, it's a process. Shading is not a one and done thing. It is a system where you continually go back and make changes. A lot of students, they want shading to be a simple, quick process that equally does something. And then really, it's more like sharpening a rock or sanding down a piece of wood where you're constantly going back, changing the grid of the paper, changing what you need to do, changing the direction to get a different result. Because let's say I have a circle and I want to shade that circle to look like a 3D thing. And I can come up here and I can add some of the shadows. I can even curve that shadow line that I put in to make it look a little bit more realistic as a sphere. But if I shade just up and down, it's going to be relatively flat. Even if I go back in with my eraser and clean up all the edges of things I don't want to be there, relatively flat. If I do the same thing over here and I shade with a curve, you notice I'm moving my finger in a curved line. That curve that I'm moving into is going to make the object still feel rounder. So we have two objects, or two circles. One of them looks kind of flat like a button. The other one is starting to look a little bit more round. Now I could go back in and add a little bit more. Because like I said, shading is not just a one and done. Shading is a process where you continually go back in and you add some more, you erase, you add some more, you erase. It's a very, very slow process that you use and you fine tune. Takes a little bit of effort, or actually takes a great deal of effort, but it pays off, and you get something that looks a lot more realistic over time. So let's talk about shading here. Important things on your images is always to have a high degree of light and dark. So your dark should be the darkest you could get with the pencil, and your light should be the lightest you could get on your page. And that is going to always make a more interesting image. So as we go through and we add the shading, like right here, this eye is going to need to be in shadow. So I'm going to start out. I'm going to hit the darkest places I can. And I might even use another piece of paper to stop myself from shading other things. I can come in here and blend it down a little bit. Pull out my paper. I've got this sharp line there. That's very, very handy if you want to do a shadow going across the face and you don't want to erase everything that you want to do. Anyway, I'm going back in, adding my highlights back into that, and then re-blending to kind of soften the lines from my eraser. Using my eraser, pull back some of the light in the eye, hit back some of the dark. Get the little shadows of the darkest parts of that line, and everything starts to look more and more realistic because your brain is putting more and more information in there. All right, so compare the two eyes. Which one looks better? This one's cleaner. It's a lot simpler. It's more of a symbol of an eye. But this one has a lot more information that we can start seeing a lot of the lights and shadows. And that's going to start making this image look more realistic in the long term. This is a great cartoon. This is a better render. And we'll use the shading to render. Now, since I want to render a round thing, I'm moving my finger in a circle. And using that circle to create kind of some of the lights and darks. And really, really going deep in there. Maybe too deep, too dark. Go back in, my eraser. Pull back some of this. Soften it up back with my finger or a blending stick. A blending stick's honestly just a piece of paper that we use that kind of helps us add some blend to it. Need to go back in, add some dark to the ear. Blend it back. Again, this process of rendering, it's very slow, and you will end up erasing a lot and reattaching and erasing a lot and reattaching, but it works well. Now, let's say you want to even feather beyond what you can do with a pencil. You want something even softer than a pencil finger. If you take a dry paintbrush, dry paintbrushes, especially with some of the darker formats, like charcoal, but I'm going to do this with a just my ebony pencil. I need a little stiffer of a brush. Let me grab a stiffer brush here. This will very, very softly blend. Softer than what my finger will do. Here's my finger. Here's the brush. Brush will do it even. Oh, sorry. I had lost the camera there. Brush will do it even and soft. So very, very soft blends from a brush. That's wonderful if you want to control the blend even more. So Shading, always very important. Lights and darks of your image, very important. Make sure that you take your time and understand eraser is going to be your best friend. Having a possible other image, if you don't want to shade something to use as a mask, is a very powerful tool as well. Once again, I lost my camera. Sorry. Once again, showing it like this. You can create these wonderful shadow lines for shading. So just simply having a mask there, I've created this wonderful angle. And let's do this here. Let's draw a line just of a little diamond shape. Something relatively easy you can do at home. Normal pencil, or if you have an ebony pencil. Oh my goodness, I did it off camera again. I'm so sorry, guys. So I drew this, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use blending and a masking paper to kind of come in. You're going to use two pieces of paper, one over there and just another one that is coming straight down. So one following this angle and another one straight down here. I'm going to use my finger and just blend, shade and smudge this ebony pencil that I created and really get it kind of on the edge. But I'm going over the edge like this so I don't accidentally give myself a paper cut. Nice soft edge on my on the shape. I've got this really nice render, and I can do the same by coming up here or even can hold this piece of paper there, and I can do the outer edge. And do something fun like that. All right. That is shading. Have an awesome day.